Welcome to World Prism. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Let's talk global trade, a world where two superpowers, the US and China, turned a policy spat into a global headache. For decades, the world's goods have flowed smoothly across oceans, connecting factories, ports, and people in a vast, invisible web. But in 2025, that web got tangled in a way nobody saw coming. In late 2025, instead of fighting with tanks, they started slapping extra port fees on each other's ships. Think of it as a cover charge for just showing up. Suddenly, every container ship became a pawn in a new kind of standoff, forced to pay up just to dock and unload. This wasn't just paperwork, it sent shockwaves through the global supply chain, raising prices on everything from sneakers to snacks. Retailers scrambled, shipping companies panicked, and consumers everywhere started to feel the pinch as costs trickled down to store shelves. Why should you care? Because almost everything you own has crossed an ocean, and when the US and China start a fight, the whole system wobbles. Your phone, your shoes, even your morning coffee. Chances are, they all spent time on a ship caught in the crossfire. The US accused China of using government subsidies to dominate shipbuilding, while China shot back, maybe try being better at it. Both sides dug in, each blaming the other for tilting the playing field and refusing to back down. Instead of talking it out, the US hit China's shipping industry with new fees, sparking a tit-for-tat trade battle. China quickly retaliated, and soon, ports from Los Angeles to Shanghai were caught in the middle of a growing storm. This wasn't just about money, it was a glimpse into the high-stakes economic chess match between the world's two largest economies. Every move was calculated, every fee, a signal, as both sides tried to outmaneuver each other on the global stage. The result? A fragile, interconnected system suddenly exposed, with everyone waiting to see who would blink first. Shipping schedules slipped, goods piled up, and uncertainty rippled through boardrooms and households alike. Even after a truce, the tension lingers. This was just one round in a much bigger game. The world learned just how quickly a policy change can shake the foundations of global trade, and how fragile our connections really are. It all started with a US investigation, Section 301, a powerful tool in America's trade arsenal designed to address unfair practices by foreign nations. After months of scrutiny, the investigation concluded that China's shipbuilding dominance was fueled by a complex web of government subsidies, cheap financing, and state-backed support, giving Chinese shipyards a massive edge over global competitors. In response, the US made a bold move. A $50 per net ton fee slapped on every cargo ship built in China, regardless of who owned or operated it. This fee applied to all ships entering American ports, sending shockwaves through the industry. This wasn't just a token gesture. For large container ships, it meant tens of thousands of dollars in extra costs per port call, potentially millions over a ship's lifetime. The goal was clear: make Chinese-built ships less attractive, level the playing field, and spark a revival in American shipbuilding, which had been struggling for decades. But poking China economically is never one-sided. Trade wars have a way of spiraling, and both sides knew the risks. While the US celebrated its tough stance, the world braced for China's response, with industry leaders and governments watching anxiously. The fee was a direct challenge to China's industrial strategy, and everyone knew retaliation was coming, potentially affecting global supply chains. The first shot had been fired, and the global shipping industry was caught in the crossfire, with uncertainty rippling across continents. Would shipping lines shift to non-Chinese ships? Would companies absorb the costs, or pass them on to consumers? Would the US maritime sector finally bounce back, or would the global market simply adapt and move on? The answers would depend on how hard China hit back, and how much pain the world's shipping industry, and, ultimately consumers, could take. The stage was set for escalation, and the world watched as a new chapter in global trade began to unfold. China wasted no time, hitting back with its own special port charges on US-linked ships, a mirror move that stung American companies and sent shockwaves through the global shipping industry. These new fees weren't just a financial blow, they signaled a hardening of China's stance and a willingness to escalate the conflict. But Beijing didn't stop there. It went further, sanctioning US-linked subsidiaries of South Korea's Hanwha Ocean, a key US ally and a major player in global shipbuilding. This move sent a clear message to other US partners: even indirect involvement could have serious consequences. This wasn't just tit for tat, it was a warning to the world: side with the US, and you could get caught in the crossfire. The sanctions rippled outward, making every nation with ties to the U.S. nervous about their own exposure. The result? Chaos. Shipping lines scrambled to reroute vessels, costs soared as insurance premiums spiked and the risk of doing business in the region skyrocketed. Delays became the new normal, and uncertainty gripped the industry. China's strategy was clear: spread the pain, isolate the U.S., and pressure allies to push for peace. By targeting not just the U.S. but its partners, Beijing aimed to fracture the coalition against it. The global maritime industry was suddenly a battlefield, with everyone from shipowners to logistics firms feeling the heat. No one was immune, and the stakes kept rising with every new sanction or charge. Beijing's message was unmistakable: we can hurt you, and your friends. The world was watching, and the pressure was mounting. The escalation turned a targeted dispute into a global confrontation, drawing in countries and companies that had hoped to stay neutral. The world's shipping lanes had become the front lines of a new economic war, with every major port and sea route now a potential flashpoint. The pressure was on for a diplomatic solution, as leaders scrambled to prevent further escalation and restore stability to the world's most vital trade routes. With chaos mounting, leaders from the U.S. and China met at a high-stakes summit in South Korea. The result? A temporary truce. Both sides agreed to suspend their port fees and sanctions for 1 year. The deal wasn't a grand solution, but it stopped the bleeding and let global trade breathe again. The U.S. paused its Section 301 fees. China suspended its special port charges and sanctions on Hanwha Ocean subsidiaries. The world's shipping industry exhaled. A fragile peace had returned, at least for now. Both leaders claimed victory at home, but everyone knew this was just a pause, not a resolution. The bureaucratic machinery moved fast to formalize the truce, and for a moment, normalcy returned to the high seas. But the underlying tensions remained, waiting for the next spark. While politicians negotiated, the shipping industry was left scrambling. The sudden fees forced companies to reroute ships, absorb costs, or pass them to customers, none of it easy or cheap. Major carriers like COSCO and OOCL took financial hits to stay competitive, while supply chains teetered on the edge of chaos. Industry groups lobbied hard, warning that higher costs would trickle down to consumers and fuel inflation. The truce brought relief, but the disruption left scars. Companies realized how vulnerable global trade was to political whims. Boardrooms everywhere started talking about diversifying supply chains and building resilience. The lesson was clear: the next trade storm could hit at any time. The industry would never take stability for granted again. Not everyone cheered the truce. Critics called it an American surrender. Maritime experts argued the U.S. gave up leverage, suspending fees that hit thousands of Chinese ships in exchange for China pausing charges on just 183 U.S. vessels. The imbalance was stark. The U.S. blinked first, they said, and lost its best tool to challenge China's shipbuilding dominance. Critics warned this would embolden Beijing and undermine efforts to rebuild America's maritime industry. The truce, they argued, was a tactical retreat that left the core problem: China's subsidized shipbuilding untouched. The 1-year pause just delayed a necessary confrontation. For hawks, it was a strategic defeat dressed up as pragmatism. The U.S. prioritized short-term relief over long-term strength. The underlying issues remained, and the clock was ticking. Would the U.S. find the will to act when the truce expired? So, where are we now? The guns are silent, but the conflict isn't over. The 1-year truce is just a pause. Fundamental disagreements still simmer. No one knows what happens next. Will fees return? Will companies get refunds? Will rates go even higher? The industry is bracing for more turbulence, rewriting contracts to handle sudden fee hikes, and setting aside cash for the next round. Everyone knows this isn't settled, just delayed. Meanwhile, the U.S. is still probing other trade issues, from tariffs on cranes to LNG exports. The future? Uncertain. Negotiations continue, but the risk of another trade war looms. Will the U.S. and China find common ground, or are we just waiting for the next storm? For now, the seas are calm, but everyone's watching the horizon. The next round could start with a single political decision: